Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to episode 79 of Cutscene Convos. We've got an absolute monster episode this week. We will be discussing Wonder Woman. Who is she? Where's she from? What's her story? I'll let you know. More at 10. Final thoughts before Blue Beetle comes out. Final thoughts before Ahsoka starts next Wednesday. Also, is Seth Rogen the king of superhero media? Maybe.
Bold.
We've also got a bit of a juicy Nerd News Network for you this week before wrapping it up with our content championship, which is Iron Man versus Lord of the Rings Fellowship of the Rings. Ooh, but for all that good stuff, Horizontal, how's your week been?
I don't know where my week's gone, honestly. Like, I don't know what it is.
It was Monday yesterday.
I don't know what it is at the moment. It's like, I swear we just finished recording last week's episode. Yeah, I mean, we recorded, had all the editing to do, then I went to a girlfriend's for the weekend. Went to IKEA, had some Swedish meatballs.
Swedish meatballs?
We love a plate full of Swedish meatballs. I don't know, it can't be IKEA.
All the balls in your mouth.
Yeah. I knew it was coming. And then, yeah, just been working all week. It feels like work's ramped up, and then it's like the days just disappear. And on top of that, my room's in chaos because I was like, I've decided I want to rearrange my room. So it's just like pulling shit out from under my bed. Like, I've just been so many boxes. You know how our generation are the worst for like, new headphones, I'll keep hold of the box. Or Stream Deck, I'll keep hold of the box. I have my PC boxes that I've not even gone through yet, and this PC is like 8-9 years old yet. I just got rid of my Stream Deck one. So the recycle bin just got like piled full of cardboard boxes of stuff that I don't even know why I'm keeping. So I was like, I don't need these. They're not getting returned.
Dreadful. Absolutely dreadful.
But yeah, also doing that while doing work is just, my week seems to have just disappeared. We're back to Thursday again and ready to do this all over again.
Just rinse and repeat, brother. Welcome to life.
Yeah. I mean, how's your week been as you've entered adulthood? So I understand.
Mate, it's been chaos. So last week we spoke about how we'd had our first viewing and we had a couple more viewings lined up.
Mm-hmm.
We've since then had viewings of them places, put an offer in, had an offer accepted, had to find a broker, a solicitor, so that it gets taken off the market so that other people don't come with bids. Mean we get usurped. It's chaos. There is just so much paperwork, and the entire process is so damn confusing. And thank God for my partner; she's handling most of it. Because a lot like the phone calls and stuff just don't gel as well with what I have to do at work versus what she has to do at work. It's easier for her to take a phone call quickly.
Yeah.
But it's just so much. We've literally gone from we're getting a few lots out there to okay, so we're aiming to finish paperwork and exchange contracts end of November, and we should move in March.
Damn, that's still quite a while away.
So my understanding is they're moving into a new build, the people who currently own it and living there, which is going to be ready in March.
Got you.
They said apparently they're happy to move out earlier and just stay with their parents for a little while. But our logic was, if we're not finished with the handing over of contracts till the end of November, you've then got December, which is Christmas, and the last thing you want to do is be moving or organising moving while also trying to do Christmas.
Yep.
January is a big fucking hangover from Christmas, and again, to actually move in January, you'd have to do a lot of the organising in December. At which point it's February.
Yeah.
And at that point, I'm like, well, we've waited that long. We may as well just
Yeah, fair. That's fair.
chill for another month. Plus, knowing that we've got like X amount of time till the move-in date, it allows us to pick up them little things you need that you don't have when you're moving in somewhere for the first time, like a microwave, a toaster, fucking
Adult
pots
things.
and pans. Yeah. So it'll give us time to work out what we actually need and also buy some of that when we have a little bit more disposable income. So
Exciting
yeah,
times.
it seems like a long time, but it's gonna fly by.
Oh yeah, it will fly.
Yeah.
Which scares me that before we know it, it's going to be Christmas.
Yeah, 100%. It's in my mind. I'm like, cool, it's Christmas, because before I know it, it will be.
I don't want to think about Christmas yet. Thank you.
But so yeah, it's been a interesting week to say the least.
Yeah.
And it's just going to be chaos probably until the end of November now, with chasing up different people about different things and meetings and phone calls and finding that one really obscure document that you were told would be important at some point and now it is important, and
fun adult things.
But eventually this background will be different.
Exciting times.
Yeah, there will not be a bed in the background.
Then you'll have the fun time of like designing your office.
Yeah. Throw desk monitors.
I can't wait for you to have like a proper like XQC setup where it's like just empty.
Drums, pedals.
10 monitors. And then the rest of the room's just empty.
Yeah, it's gonna be rough. But yeah, that's where we're at. So
shall we get into it?
Profiles. Yeah. This time of year is being a bit of a pain in the arse, character profiles, and it's not going to get any easier because we've got a little while until any more like superhero related content's going to come out. I'm hoping Blue Beetle's going to give us a couple of surprises, but
fingers crossed.
It's not looking too good. So I decided who's been in the news this week? Gal Gadot. So let's talk about Wonder Woman. It's that simple, folks.
Yeah.
So all of this information is based on post New 52 Wonder Woman. So there are bits and bobs that have been changed, as I'm sure you can imagine, with a character as old as Wonder Woman. Nice. When you're making a big history change, it's going to affect a fair bit of their backstory because they're going to want to chop out loads of crap to try and make it a bit more streamlined.
Yeah.
So Princess Diana, aka Wonder Woman, was born to Hippolyta and Zeus. She lived on Themyscira, the island of the Amazons, her entire life, until she volunteered to enter the human world to fight for justice and equality. She joined and co-founded the Justice League. She was also a core member of the Justice Society of America. And she is one of DC's big three. Yeah. Marvel's big three traditionally was obviously Spider-Man, Hulk, and Wolverine.
Yep.
Post MCU, there are people who genuinely believe the Marvel's big three are Thor, Captain America, and Iron Man. Shows you the power of film. The DC big three is Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman. It's not much of a discussion.
Yeah.
So although she was told she was formed from clay that had life breathed into it by her mother's desire for a child, this was in fact a lie to protect her from Hera, Zeus's wife, who didn't know of Zeus's affair with Hippolyta. Even in DC lore, Zeus is a massive slut.
I mean,
how else would you describe Zeus?
Yeah, that's valid.
Yeah. As a child, Diana yearned for more than the island of Themyscira had to offer. After some minor adventures as a child, she was allowed to leave for the human world. These kind of adventures were like really pushing the boundaries and like bumping into the megalodons that guarded Themyscira that she was terrified of, and going to find lost texts that apparently were like part of a conspiracy to like change Themyscira's history so that they would only remember the good things they'd done and kind of write over some of the bad they'd done.
Right.
So she was like, in her childhood, it was almost like she was like a little like Indiana Jones, just cutting about like finding these
Lara Croft.
ancient relics. Yeah, yeah, Lara Croft. Them kind of vibes, but as a legitimate child. Um. Anyway, so she was allowed to leave for the human world. And she arrived in 1939.
Just after I was born.
Yep. She saved the life of FDR, Franklin D. Roosevelt, from a Nazi spy and warned him of the coming evil. While doing this, she obtained permission to be the world's first superhero and continue acting to protect the innocent. She would later become a key member of the Justice Society of America during the Golden Age of Heroes that operated during the Second World War, to help and fight evil wherever they found it, before the JSA and Wonder Woman were forced into retirement by the government. Decades later, she returned to her superhero life to help form the Justice League as a founding member alongside your Batman, your Superman, your Green Lanterns.
Boys.
Exactly. During the years, she has fought as a key member of the Justice League, as well as traveling all over the world, battling evildoers and righting wrongs. Due to her heritage as an Amazonian and demigod, and additional powers that were granted to her as extra protection when leaving Themyscira, she is incredibly powerful. She's super strong, she's super durable, she's crazy fast, she's got insane reflexes, she's incredibly agile, as well as having a healing factor that puts her overall about as difficult to kill as Superman and Supergirl. She's not physically as difficult to harm as them, but she has a much more powerful healing factor and kind of get fucked, I don't care attitude, which makes her difficult to put down.
Fair.
She also has incredibly enhanced senses, with her sight, smell, and hearing, as well as being able to fly and communicate with animals. Because she's still a princess. And as we all know in lore, princesses can communicate with animals.
This is true.
And she is functionally immortal, meaning that she doesn't age past her prime. I always used to get confused about what immortal meant, and I feel like it gets used kind of interchangeably with invincible.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just kind of comment. She's also, due to her advanced lifespan, a master of basically all weaponry, although she is fond of more traditional weapons like swords and shields and bows and arrows. She has a keen tactical mind and is incredibly wise and intelligent, with a specific knack for diplomacy. So she kind of acts as the intermediary between the Justice League and governments, but also within the Justice League itself to help resolve disputes, because she is quite wise and, like I said, has a knack for diplomacy. It's interesting because a lot of people take issue with like her being intelligent. It's like, well, she is very intelligent because she's well studious, but the bigger thing is that she's wise, and I think a lot of people don't realize the difference between wise and intelligence.
Yeah.
Like, you always see memes about it. It's like, wise is knowing not to kick the rock that's trapped. Intelligence is knowing that the rock is booby trapped.
Yeah, it's that the other example I love is like intelligence is knowing a tomato is a fruit. Wise is knowing it doesn't go in a fruit salad.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like,
so she's wise. She takes information that she knows and she makes sense of it instead of just knowing the information. And because of like, the diplomacy just naturally comes from like this Greek pantheon that she comes from. The Greeks invented diplomacy, so it's kind of difficult to have this kind of a character without the idea of them being quite diplomatic.
You've also got to remember, like, she's old as fuck. So like she's been around and seen a lot. So Like, it
In
makes
100
sense.
years, you'll both be dead, and I won't remember this argument.
Yeah. Pretty much.
But yeah, that is Wonder Woman.
Would make a great third film.
It would, but we will talk about that in a little bit.
Yeah.
Blue Beetle.
Yes.
It comes out tomorrow.
Was it tomorrow? I hadn't even realised it was that.
I think it's August 18th. So I mean today, as you guys are listening to it.
Yeah.
Let me just double check that quickly. Yeah, August 18th in the UK.
Damn. Okay.
I'm very excited. I mean, I've made no qualms about how excited I am. What I'm not looking forward to, and this is just a prediction, is people who've never read a comic book or understood that comic characters have existed for a long time trying to claim that they've just made Iron Man.
Yeah.
I can already see them. People are going to go, so it's just like Iron Man's nano suit. And it's like,
so it's like a Beetle Iron Man.
Yeah. I can already see them kind of complaints. But, I mean, everything I'm hearing and seeing excites me.
Yeah, no, it looks great.
It's debuted with like 86% on Rotten Tomatoes from reviewers.
Yes, it's getting some good
solid.
My only concern falls back to James Gunn's comment of
I think it's definitely going to confuse the entire situation.
Him saying that like this isn't the first DCU film, but his first DCU character. And it's like I think it'll be fine as long as there's no DCEU tie-ins.
I'm really hoping it's disconnected as fuck.
Yeah.
And I can just sit down and watch a superhero film for the first time, what feels like forever, that needs no background knowledge.
Yes.
Because it's always easiest to tell if a film is good or not when you don't need or use additional context.
Yeah. I think you're right. I very much hope that there's like just don't do cameos. I hope that any cameos there were scrapped. Just let it be its own film.
Exactly.
Otherwise, like you say, it'll add to confusion. It'll also be easier to like people will probably appreciate it better if it's not got like a Wonder Woman slapped in there.
Yeah. If I have to hear her theme one more time, I'm going to commit crimes. The big problem is it's got a relatively big price tag.
Oh, okay.
It made 120 million. Oh no, sorry. It cost 120 million to make. DC ain't doing it at the box office at the minute.
It could be it could turn the tides.
As a general rule, I think when stuff's going against you, you need something that's got a lot of hype and you can market the fuck out of.
Which they're trying.
Blue Beetle has limited hype in the grand scheme of the world.
Yeah.
Obviously in our little silo, everyone's excited for it, but that is a very small population. Yeah. And they can't do that much marketing because before their it's not even like they got like 2 weeks of filming interviews before the strike and they can just re-air them interviews like some other films got. They've not started any real promotional work before the strike happened.
I'd completely forgot. Like, obviously I've been seeing like the trailers and posters and different things keep cropping up, but it's like, I hadn't even thought about the fact that usually there's press tours going on, so we start seeing them talking about the film.
And like we talk about questions that are answered in press tours all the time.
Yeah, we do.
Most of the stuff that are quotes from actors now are from a press tour from whatever they're promoting. So the fact that there's been none of that might hurt it. What I will say is, this is the first superhero film in a minute that my father has actively said to me, "Are you guys going to see that? Can I come?"
Oh.
Because he's seen the trailers and he liked the look of it.
That props to the visuals.
I mean, that's a good sign if people who seen superhero films and had lost a bit of interest, seeing the trailers and going, that piqued my interest.
Yeah.
That's a good sign.
Yeah. I mean, my girlfriend also saw the trailer and she was like, "Oh, that's cool." And then she also was like, "Is that the Buster Sword out of Final Fantasy?" I was like, "Yep, yes, it is." But yeah,
I mean, all the little bits that we do have of information have me excited. We know the suit was a real fucking thing that they were wearing on set, and it's just touched up with CGI.
Yep.
That is our favorite thing ever.
It is.
We know that the fighting style they implemented for Blue Beetle was inspired heavily by the Injustice 2 games.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you like the games or not, and whether you like the Injustice story or not, is completely separate. That brutal, weighty kind of fighting is something we're not getting a lot of in superhero films at the minute.
Yeah.
And even in like the little bit in the trailer you do see where he like flips the guy and kicks him into the wall, that has some venom behind it that I'm fucking excited for.
Yeah, I do. I think, being realistic, I think that the story of the film is going to be pretty standard origin feel. I don't think it's going to be anything crazy, but I think the character and the hero is going to be super fun to watch. Yeah. Which is then going to have us excited for the fact that we know it's going to show up in DCU.
100%. I think it is going to underperform at the box office. You're going to get people who try and claim it's a flop. It's because it's seen as a big budget superhero film, so if it doesn't make 800 million, it's a flop. That is not. I think if this film makes 300 million, it's a relative success.
Any profit for a DCEU era film is a win.
Yeah. The problem is, this is the next Warner Bros. Film after Barbie.
Yeah, but in superhero terms, it's the next one after Flash. So, I mean...
what I'm hoping is, have they announced when Blue Beetle's going to digital yet?
I don't think... Not that I've seen Blue Beetle digital. Doesn't say. It's not announced yet, no.
Okay, cool. Because what I noticed, and I've not noticed this before, but I've also made a big effort to spend less time on TikTok doom scrolling. I just do it on Twitter now. Is when people see a trailer they like the look of on TikTok, the comments is just flooded with, when is this coming to streaming?
Oh.
And this will be trailers for films that aren't even out yet, like Blue Beetle.
Wild.
Because by announcing 2 days into the cinema run when it's coming to digital, people are already at the point now where they're like, no, wait, bring back, if you don't watch it for the month it's in the cinema, you have to wait 6 months to see it and watch the cinemas come back to life.
Well, I mean, even if it was 3 months, like, just less than a month, like, if you're releasing it in a month or less, or even when it's still in the cinema, when films have done this, like, we need to stop this. And I do think some films are realizing that. There's like a weird mix of them. You're getting some that are like releasing really quick to digital, and some seem to be waiting a while. And I think some studios are starting to realize, okay, we need to, like, it's hurting us in the box office.
Would you like my prediction of how this gets fixed realistically?
Okay, go on.
If the writers and actors win the strike, i.e. get terms close to what they want, it becomes less profitable to focus on getting it to streaming platforms as quickly as possible, because right now the producers are incentivized to get it on their own platforms as quickly as possible, because you don't have to pay cinemas as much, and the only way to watch it is by paying you money directly with no cuts. Yeah?
Yeah.
And they don't have to pay actors and writers anything.
Proper residuals.
Or if they do, tiny little amount. Yeah?
Yeah.
It's like, do you remember the drama where fucking Scarlett Johansson sued Disney over Black Widow? Because they did a dual release of it where it was on Disney Plus
Yes.
and in the cinema at the exact same time. And she went, but in my contract, all of my bonuses were baked into how it did at the cinema.
Yeah.
And you hurt the cinema sales because people could watch it digitally.
Yeah.
So they've protected themselves now by letting it run in the cinema. But the second it's done in the cinema, it's out on digital and everyone just knows that's what's happening.
Yeah.
So they just wait.
Yeah.
They need to win it so that they're getting paid a lot better from streaming platforms. So that, like, we may as well leave it in the cinema then.
Yeah. No, I actually think you're right. I think the strikes might benefit everyone in the sense of like it will. They're gonna wait to put it on streaming.
Yeah. Say it with me, people. Strikes only hurt the mega rich who we hate anyway.
Yeah.
It's a bit wordy. We'll work it out. But yeah, no, I'm mad excited.
Same.
And if this film lives up to my expectations, the only disappointment of the summer for me will be The Flash, which is, I think, a dub overall. When you look at how many films we've covered this summer, if The Flash is the only one that was disappointing,
because it was meh. Yeah, it wasn't like it was.
Well, yeah, because
terrible.
we saw the potential.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong. I actually
so
think
good.
as long, and also I'm excited for this because like if it does well, like we're hoping, it's James Gunn likes this film so much that says to me that like this is like his sort of feel for a film, which is also then going to give us an insight into a little tease maybe of what DCU is going to be like.
Yeah.
And as long as it's not got some weird ties to like the old stuff, I don't think it'll be too confusing going forward.
I really, really agree.
But yeah.
And then after Blue Beetle was done, we're moving back into TV season.
We are.
Kicking
to a galaxy far, far away.
With Ahsoka.
I'm so ready.
So I'm going to say this at the top.
Oh.
And you're going to hate what I'm about to say.
Oh.
Next week is the week, Corey. You said I need to give you a week notice before I'm going to finish Rebels. And you're going to watch all of Invincible and the Atom Eve special. It's that time, my friend.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Oh.
So you on to the end of Rebels?
I've got, I believe, 15 episodes left. And I will, of course, make sure that is finished before Ahsoka starts.
Damn. Okay, well, I know what I'm doing next week.
Yeah. So I do actually have one question. I did put it in the chat, but I don't know if you saw it. From where I am in Rebels, they were talking more about the weapons Sabine made while she was at the academy because it got used in a bunch of Mandalorians. Did she design the first version of what would later become the Death Star? Or is that not confirmed and I'm making a very broad assumption there?
I don't think it was confirmed, and I need to remind myself, like, what weapon it, like, I can't remember.
The prototype that we've seen them use on the Mandalorians was very much kind of eviscerates everything. And then not long after, we saw some massive giant kyber crystals that were obviously for the Death Star.
Yeah, I don't know if it then led. Maybe because it was like.
So she designed the Duchess.
Yeah, which was
or the arc pulse generator.
Yeah. Which I don't. I'm trying to look up how that works.
Turned into the Death Star. So I'm sorry. This completely derailed me. I searched, was the Duchess turned into a Death Star? Yeah. One of the first links I get is from a newspaper whose name I'm not going to say because they're scummy. An article titled 3rd of January 2018. Are you ready for this headline?
Okay.
Star Wars fan slam cuddly Death Star pajamas with hearts.
What? How the fuck have you gotten that? How is that? Google sort shit out.
But yeah, anyway, so that was just a question that came into my head while I was watching it. It doesn't look like there's not slap. That's now my head canon until I get given evidence otherwise. It's all Sabine's fault.
Yeah, I don't remember how what went into the creation of that weapon.
All we know is that she designed it while she was part of the academy, and she feels very, very ill about it.
Yeah, I think what you like, I don't know if her thing became the Death Star. What I imagine is there was probably a group of people doing like all on their own little projects of like coming up with weapons. Hers, she felt sick about hers because it targeted her own people specifically.
Yeah.
Um, it wouldn't surprise me if that like whatever that unit was called, someone in there also was like led to realize, oh, we can weaponize like giant kyber crystals.
Okay,
So,
cool.
so yeah.
But yes, I'm almost finished with Rebels. I'm so ready to get into Ahsoka.
So
I mean, I can't wait.
I saw some. I don't know if it was from Dave. I think it was some comment that someone had asked him a question, and he essentially was saying that the Ahsoka Sabine sort of like master apprentice vibe we're gonna see
Uh-huh.
is kind of, he was like saying it's a continuation of what we've seen of Obi-Wan to Anakin, Anakin to Ahsoka, and now Ahsoka to Sabine. It's the development of how each one's trained their Padawan, and we're gonna get to see like how Anakin's training affected Ahsoka, and now Ahsoka's putting that, and how she is going to train Sabine. So I think that's going to be interesting. We
100%.
know that Christian's going to appear
Yes.
at some point, so I'm excited for that.
I mean, we know as a bare minimum he's recorded new voice lines, which are very similar to some Clone Wars dialogue, which has made everyone very happy.
I wouldn't be surprised if like they actually have got him in to do stuff, even if it's just like he's doing something that's not with Ahsoka on set, but like I don't know. But it'll be cool to see him and have him show up, even if it's just once.
Just imagine we get a recreation of the scene of Ahsoka warming up and, practicing like with all the stormtroopers firing the stuns at her. And we get a live action version of that with
Imagine.
Hayden, Rosario, and the actor who plays Django and Boba, and by
Oh,
default, all the clones.
yeah. It'd
Sort
be,
of tie in
well,
there.
even if it's like, I would love if we got like a training
Tamira
scene,
Morrison.
if we got like some old training scene of Anakin and Ahsoka, and then it cuts to the same training scenario, but it's Ahsoka and Sabine.
Yeah,
I think that'd be cool to see.
yeah. But yeah, I'm hoping we get to see Rex, but it doesn't sound good based on what Tamira Morrison was saying a couple of months ago.
Yeah, I don't. Somehow, I think by this point, they'll be such like their paths are so separated. I don't. Well,
This
obviously,
is Star Wars. Since when have we ever given a fuck about
I
something
know,
that
but
trivial?
it, I think it would have been cool, but I don't. Yeah, I think they're going to focus more on Thrawn and everything going on.
I am very excited to see Thrawn.
Yeah, same. It's
Apparently, I don't know if this is like a Legends book, so therefore not officially canon.
okay.
But apparently, Thrawn had interacted with Anakin during the Republic era, and they'd met. So people are speculating we might get like a live action depiction of that meeting.
I don't know about that. Possibly, maybe that's where we see Anakin with a young Thrawn.
That would be cool.
A quick Google of Thrawn Anakin interaction gets apparently Thrawn fought alongside him.
Thrawn and Anakin first met during the Clone Wars, where they formed a temporary alliance to achieve their individual missions and successfully locate Padme. So, the problem is Thrawn was thrown into Rebels, and a lot of Thrawn's lore is legend stuff, which isn't canon.
Yeah,
But
so
was he always evil, or is he just like hyper? The government is the government. I'll follow the
I
government.
think Hyper government, like hyper sort of
I work
order,
for
and
whoever's in charge.
yes, but also wants to climb. Like he wants to be the one in charge.
Got yeah.
He's very power like wants to be the top dog, but also to kind of do it his way, but also order and respect. Will cross
Okay.
lines like some of the top dogs in would. Like
Got you.
he's
Got you.
past that, like, oh, the government's right to we are the all powerful government sort of view. Is the vibe I get from Thrawn.
Okay.
So
But yeah, I think it's gonna be really cool. All these characters have managed to steal my heart slowly over nearly 4 seasons. I'm through now. All the stuff in live action in the trailers looks great. It'll be fun to see the ghost. Hopefully, we'll get to see Zeb. I mean, we saw Zeb in the
yeah,
Mandalorian. Hopefully, we get to see him again
I think we
in
will see
Rebels.
Zeb again.
Hera.
Chopper.
I mean, I'm not a dumbass. I'm very aware that no one's talking about Kanan, and Kanan's not in the trailers. And I know Freddie Price Jr. hasn't done anything to get himself cancelled. So I'm only assuming in the 15 episodes I have left, something very bad's happened to Kanan.
You don't know if it's bad.
Especially now that he has shown like the love interest between him and Hera has now become more cemented, and he's piecing together something bad is going on, and the Loaf Wolf has just told him his real name, and I'm just a bit like, oh, this is very much the mentor dies time.
There's all I will say is there's a lot of fuckery happens at the end of Rebels that is, which I haven't been able to talk about with Ahsoka yet, but that's going to be the interesting stuff in Ahsoka because I know it's going to come up. So there's just,
I mean to have my mind melted, yeah.
yeah, there's a lot of weird shit happens towards the end.
But regardless, Kanan ain't making it to Ahsoka, and I don't know how fucking heart wrenching this is going to be.
Or why?
Yeah. I mean, does he just become one with the Force in like very old school Episode 4 Obi-Wan way, where he just fucking
Just
disappears?
closed,
Yeah, disappears and refuses to elaborate.
Nah, it's all will be shown and explained.
But yeah, I mean, I can't wait. I'm loving Star Wars media. I think of all the stuff we cover at the minute, Star Wars media has been the most consistently enjoyable.
Yeah, it has actually.
As a general rule, a lot of the criticisms of Star Wars media hasn't been valid and has come from a place of mainly bigotry. So
Yeah,
that
or
means we get to just sit there and go, okay, well, you
Star
don't
Wars
have valid
fans.
points. Yeah.
Old school is the best way.
Yeah. So I mean, I cannot wait. It'll be nice having like weekly shows
Yeah,
to
it
watch
will.
again. I feel like this one of the longest breaks we've gone on without a weekly show.
Yeah, it's
And then
so
I feel
wild.
like after this, it's coming thick and fast because it's only 9 episodes, isn't it?
I think so. Yeah, we get 2 to start off with. But yeah, it's like I remember sort of this time last year we were like knee deep in shows.
Yeah, we had like 4 shows going at a time.
It feels so like easy going at the moment when there's like, oh, there's no weekly show, or it's like, oh, there's just one on the horizon. But I already know we're gonna get like, because Loki's coming.
Yeah, I think Loki and Ahsoka cross over by a week or 2 as well.
Yeah, that's fine.
So yeah, we're
light work for us.
Exactly, us content veterans. I consume content like no one. We do have something else very important to talk about.
Yes, something you wanted to put out into the world.
Yeah, Seth Rogen. He's been skating under the radar a little bit here, and I noticed this on Twitter. Someone was like, Seth Rogen's not missing with superhero content, and that was as a response. He was asked in an interview about would he ever work with Marvel or anything, and he was like, I've never spoken to them. I've never spoken to Kevin. I'd be interested, but I don't know if like the way I do stuff aligns with the way they do stuff.
Yeah.
So not closing the door, but he's not like willing to give up the way he does stuff just to make a deal happen.
Yeah.
And it was at that point I really realized that yeah, he's had cameos in a lot of superhero stuff. He's also executive producer, co-writer, sometimes director of The Boys, Invincible, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and some others as well. Let me just get Seth Rogen, superhero
Stuff. He's done a lot.
Uh,
On the like on the quiet sort of.
yeah,
Because I do think a lot of people still just think of him as like the comedy actor.
yeah. I don't think people respect him enough as a writer.
I think people don't
Um,
realize he writes. I think
yeah,
also like he's not until this Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle stuff. I wouldn't say he's like been very like overly vocal doing press stuff about the fact that he's produced and written like and been in charge of a project essentially. I think that like this is the first big one where like he's publicly talked about it a lot. Um, but that just goes to show like he's been doing God's work quietly.
yeah. And he's also been a big advocate for indie superhero stuff getting its fucking chances,
Yes.
which I think is really important. Um, so he was a writer for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Mm-hmm.
He was a director and executive producer for The Boys.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, director for The Boys and executive producer on The Boys, as well as also being executive producer on Invincible and obviously Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles as well.
Yeah.
Um, he's done a lot of work and he's
Mm.
very involved with the process and that because he knows a lot of the people who do the other bits of it and like they asked his opinion and that's how he got into it. But it's interesting because that's all the stuff that's like seen as the breath of fresh air.
Yeah. All the new stuff, the enjoyable new styles. I
And
mean,
with and it's not even like you can just go, oh well, it's just he's picking the right projects and he can see something that has potential and pick it up because the boys' comics are shit. They are.
okay.
It's a widely respected thing when proper comic book heads, like even more than myself, saw the boys was being turned into a TV show. Those who
Mm.
were aware of it went, really? That's what you're gonna because it is just this massive mess of edgelord stuff.
Right.
Which comics are always on the verge of being anyway, but they're already just like we are just gonna do the most outrageous thing for the sake of it being outrageous, which
Yeah.
makes the story a mess, and it
Yeah.
just it makes it gratuitous in a way that doesn't advance the story. It's just for the sake of being gratuitous. Whereas by the time they've then translated it into the show,
Mm-hmm.
they've gone, okay, so how do we like have this edge to it that's obviously the whole selling point of it, but
Yeah.
actually make it so it's worth having the edge instead of being all edge.
There's a lot of edge.
Yes, it's so edgy. You'd know that if you'd watched
Okay.
it.
One show at a time, okay? Let's get through Invincibles first.
Get through it. Whereas Invincible is widely regarded as like one of the
Really
best
good.
indie comics of all time.
Yeah.
Like it's absolutely beloved. When that got announced, it was being turned into a show. Massive comic book heads collectively went, "Now we're fucking
Yes.
talking." It ran for 12 years,
Right.
and it had a start and a finish, and it was all in that. It was like, "We're done. We will re-release it. We'll do the compendiums. I've got the first one, which I'm like
Mm-hmm.
halfway through. But that's the story. There's no more to it. Yeah, they
Yep.
did some spin-offs for different characters to build the universe out,
Yep.
but they've not done what a Spider-Man does, which is started in the 60s and it just keeps on going, and eventually you're going to get to a point where people are like, yeah, there's a lot of great stuff, but there's also a lot of shit
Yeah.
because you're just
Bulking it.
you can't do anything too decisive because then someone's either going to have to retcon it,
Mm-hmm.
or you might get rid of something you really want.
Yeah.
While also being a unique story that at the time didn't feel overdone. Now, granted, Invincible and The Boys coming out at the same time has kind of tired people of the evil Superman trope,
Yeah.
but Homelander has turned into more than that,
Mm-hmm.
and Omni-Man was always more than that, and we're going to get to see him as more than that in season 2 of Invincible.
Yeah.
And then you've got Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which was a franchise that was adored by millions, kind of left to rot, couple of bad decisions, and everyone thought it was dead and buried at least for a while. And now, for the first time in like 6, 7, 8, 9 years, all revenue from the brand of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles has now crossed $1 billion again. So, like, granted, not all of that is from the film, but it's from the film and the toys from the film and everything else that's generated because of the film.
Yeah.
They've got it back to where it should be. Because, let's be honest, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles film, the film by itself was never going to make $1 billion because it's a kid's film.
Yeah.
But what it was going to do is do exactly what we did, which was before the film, you see the advert with the toys, and the kids have been taken to see the film by the parents now who might have grown up watching Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which is terrifying.
Yep.
They've gone, Daddy, I want that for my birthday. I want that for Christmas. I want that because I want that and I'm a child. And yeah, I'm so happy to see this franchise back alive.
I guarantee Christmas they'll have like the biggest boost in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle toy sales they've had in years.
I can absolutely see Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles doing really, really well at Christmas.
Yeah.
Because by then it will also be out on DVD.
Yeah.
Which will I won't be surprised if it comes out on DVD probably late October, early November. So that it's been out just long enough for someone to pick it up. Their kids watch it. Their kid falls in love with it because it's the funny talking turtles who are karate people.
Yeah.
It sounds silly, but it's the
true.
most awesome concept to a childlike brain. They're funny. They like pizza. I like pizza, and they're funny, and I love it. And shapes and colors.
Do you know what's wild with the success that is, like we're saying about toys and stuff for this coming back into light? Back in the day, like, yeah, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was the TV show. There was all the toys. It's now in video games. Did you see the Fall Guys crossover?
No, I didn't.
They've done a crossover with Fall Guys, so you can get the outfits and be each of the turtles in Fall Guys. It's like the perfect. So it's like
they must have even Fortnite at some point.
Possibly, they're even pushing now into like it's a new era of like
TMNT. 4 days ago.
Oh, there you go. Like where like that's the whole thing. Like they've completely relaunched essentially the brand into this new era, which is more than just toys and TV. It's toys, TV, film, games. Like it's gonna become like a huge franchise. Like it's gonna reinvigorate that franchise.
You've also got the Last Ronin game, which is coming out at some point in the next couple of years.
Yes, you have.
And that's gonna like that. They are, if they continue to do it right, which is what they're doing at the minute, they are grabbing everyone who's had an interest in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and giving them something to go. Maybe I'll get back into that.
Yeah.
While simultaneously giving the next generation of kids something to want and look forward to, so that you've then got, and then they know they had a multi-billion-dollar franchise that they let waste away, and they are trying to reinvigorate it, and I'm so down. Ben 10 next, in my opinion.
And it was all because Seth Rogen came along and had a film idea for them.
Yeah. I'm sure he's not the only one involved in all this stuff, but he's doing some good work here. And by creating competition in these markets for Marvel and DC, it means that people have an alternative.
Yes. And it's all well and Marvel's not dominating anymore.
Yeah. If you're losing money because you're not good enough, but there's no one there to fill the void, you're going to be like, well, they're not spending their money elsewhere. We're still the lead. When they get bored and they're really desperate for superhero content, they'll still come back to us. When there's actual competition there, that's the problem. Do
you know what this is now mirroring? What we've been experiencing. Do you remember when Netflix was the only streaming service? So everyone was like, "Oh my god, yes, streaming! I guess we just watch that." Now that there's loads of fucking streaming sites and options, people are like, Netflix isn't actually that great. Marvel was once the Netflix. Now there's a lot of different superhero options, whether it's Marvel, DC, or these Prime stuff, or Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Like, Marvel ain't looking as hot as it used to.
Exactly. And Marvel never dominated comics. It never dominated action figures. It never dominated games.
They just got in early on film.
Put it this way, Marvel as a company is somehow now valued at like $57 billion. because of the success of these films.
Thank you, Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah. If they don't find a way to start making good games, which they are, well, it looks like they are, and they don't improve the quality of their comics, which I mean is up for a lot of debate depending on who you ask. They could be in real trouble if DC starts pumping out good films with the DCU, and if you've got these indie studios, well, Amazon isn't indie, but you know what I mean? Like these indie comics getting picked up by their competitors, it's looking dodgy. I mean, even their biggest superhero in Spider-Man, they don't get the majority of the money for that. Yeah, it helps the Marvel brand because everyone associates Spider-Man with Marvel. So, like, it does help them, but they're not getting the actual money from that. That's going to Sony.
Yeah, true. Here's a question for you then. Because we have DCU on the horizon, and there's going to be many different directors and stuff brought in for different projects, what in DCU would you want Seth Rogen to do?
Oh, that's actually a really good question.
Because I think he could fit in the DCU world.
It would have to be a more adult film, just because that's where his humor sits.
Yeah.
I know we've just seen him very successfully write the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles film.
There's still some adult jokes in there.
Yeah.
Hidden away.
But he would definitely do better. I could see him doing a villain-centric film. I could see him doing that Rogues project that was rumoured.
Yes.
I could see him doing a very good job of that. They're quirky characters that give you a lot of room for kind of laughing because this is a bit dumb, which is Seth Rogen's fucking wheelhouse.
Yes, it is.
They're also characters that are pretty well known to the comic book fan. Or no, they're very well known to the comic book fans, and everyone who loves the Rogues already is yearning for Rogue stuff. The Rogues you've got so much room with them, you can easily market them to a wider audience. If they want to do like a 10-episode show or whatever it was rumored about the Rogues, I think he could do a really good job working on that.
Yeah, I could see that working.
I could absolutely see him having some real fun with that and getting people excited. I also think if we get what I want from the DCU, which is a more comic booky, not goofy in like this is a bit weird, but like comic books are inherently a little bit goofy and we need to accept that. And we managed to get that from the DCU. Him doing anything for the DCU would be very big. The problem is just if that then takes him away from doing indie stuff. Because right now he's the biggest major player that I'm aware of helping indie projects. And I wouldn't want a brilliant Rogues project that he's involved with to come at the cost of indie projects getting off the ground.
I could see a world where he gets the reins to like a B list or like a C list hero that James Gunn really wants to use. And it's like one where like they're not going to get a film that often, but he gets to do a film for them. And then if they get around to doing a second one, it's like that way he's not tied too heavily into the DCU. But I think it'd be cool. I think there's a world where Seth Rogen gets to do a DCU project, even if it's just a
100%.
one-off. I think
100%.
It'd be cool.
Yeah, I mean, even if they wanted to give him an Elseworlds project and just let him have a proper bit of fun with it.
Yeah, that's also true.
Like, just give us your unique flavour of what you would do with the DC world in an Elseworlds project.
James Gunn will look forward to our check in the post when you launch that idea.
Finder's fee. 10% sounds good.
Whoa. There's two of us, 20%.
My brother in Christ, how much money do you want?
A lot.
Should we get into some nerdy news, my friend?
I think we should. There's been quite a bit this week.
There has. It's been one of the ones where it's like sprinklings of loads of little things.
Yeah.
So last week we spoke about how VFX at Marvel have said they're considering unionizing.
Yep.
And we said, you unionize, you brilliant motherfuckers. or words to that effect.
Yeah, something along those lines.
They have announced that the voting for unionizing will take place between August 21st and September 11th. For people who don't understand what that means, all of the workers need to vote whether they want there to be a union or not. They can't just go there as a union now. So this vote won't be from like officials and Bob Iger and shit. It will just be the VFX workers voting.
Yeah.
And then once that vote is concluded on September 11th, the ballots will be counted on September 12th.
Yeah.
Interesting consideration.
Cool.
Do they go straight on strike if they vote to unionize?
I don't think they would. I think the way I see it playing out, I would be surprised if we don't see them unionize with everything going on and how VFX workers have been treated in recent by Marvel. I think what you'll see is the vote will come in, they will be unionizing. They will then say, as part of being a union, like, these are the basic union things that need to be met. If Disney then doesn't agree to them or doesn't want to recognize their union, then I think they might vote to strike.
Yeah.
I think they'll give them an opportunity with it, just like, look, now we're a union. These are the basic union needs that need to have to be met. Will you meet them? Disney turns around and goes, nah, screw you. We've got enough to be dealing with. Then they'll go, all right, bye then. We're striking.
So I think the big problem that this union will face if they want to go on strike straight away is they won't have a treasure chest, a war fund.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not even like the writer's strike, the actor's strike, which would have already have the strike funds that they would have built up over years from people paying their membership, but also your big donations from your superstars to make sure that everyone was looked after. Yeah. So they won't have the time to have built one up or anything. So they're kind of in a position where even though they're going to unionize, hopefully, they're still kind of screwed for another 2 years potentially until they can actually build up a big enough treasure chest to fight.
Unless someone comes along.
Yeah, the only thing that they can hope is that they unionize. The WGA and SAG-AFTRA still haven't managed a deal, and they're both like, we will help you guys out if you want to join, and we'll strike together. And like the Writers Guild have already said, even if we strike a deal, we're not coming back to work until
everyone gets a deal
sorted.
Yeah.
So that might be a world in which they can make a strike work, but that requires other unions to look after more than just their own, which is tricky.
I also, one worry I have is, while yes, I think it will be good for them if they do unionize, and it will obviously hopefully lead to them getting better conditions and stuff. I do worry that Disney, sure, their in-house studios might have a union, and it's like, okay, well, we have to do these certain things for them. Is there going to be anything that, like, I would hope they need to put something in place that stops Marvel just going, all right, we'll just outsource it then. Like, we'll just give you the bare minimum and outsource more. Like, there needs to be some, I would hope that some rule gets put in place that, like, in-house has to get a certain percentage of work.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I imagine the hope is that they unionize and then they kind of invite other VFX workers to join the union, no matter who they work for.
Yeah, potentially.
I mean, that's how all unions kind of start and grow. And they take it from just being a workplace union to an industry union.
Yeah.
It's tricky to do that because you need funds to build the infrastructure to be able to support all these people. But hopefully this is a step at least in the right direction.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
And on news of actors, writers, and VFX workers not being paid enough money, Barbie becomes Warner Bros. Highest grossing movie domestically.
It's wild.
In a year where they are going, we can't pay you more money, you don't deserve more money. Warner Bros., the people who've brought you the Harry Potter films, the DC films, like
Do you know
big
what's
franchises. Is Fast and Furious Warner Bros? No, they're Universal.
no, yeah. Do you know
They've had
what's
their biggest movie ever.
yeah? Do you know what's funny? It's like Warner Brothers needed this win. Let's be honest, they had quite a few flops, so like it's good for them. They want to celebrate it, but they've kind of screwed themselves by having such a successful film because essentially you're just gonna get the rights Guild and SAG-AFTRA just be like, "What do you mean you can't afford it? We've literally watched you just make over $1 billion and have your highest grossing movie."
And do you know what the crazy thing is as well? And this is genuinely crazy. So the news broke that Margot Robbie's going to earn $50 million because of how much money this film's made. And everyone's like, wow, 50 million is a disgusting amount of money. So, okay, folks, she got this film greenlit.
Yep.
She is the main actress. She's an executive producer, blah, blah, blah. Other than maybe Greta Gerwig and whoever wrote the script of Greta Gerwig,
Yeah.
she is one of the most important people in this film even existing. And she's getting what 2% of the film's
yeah, people don't
what?
realize how much of like a drop in the water 50 million is compared to over $1 billion.
Yeah, like let's be completely in crystal clear here. The work she's done to make this film a thing is probably worth actually 200 million. The majority of that money that's being paid to people and isn't just profit for the company. I mean, that profit for the company is also just going to go in people's pockets who literally haven't lifted a damn finger. But a lot of that money is going to be used to pay a bonus for the fucking CEO, your Warner Bros. Equivalent to Bob Iger. Who's Warner Bros. CEO?
Do you know what's funny? He'll get a performance bonus for this year.
Oh,
because
David Zaslav. Oh, why do I recognize that name and I know he's done something sketchy in the last 6 months?
Probably said that I don't know.
Oh, yeah, he was the fucking dickhead at their Q2 call who said, we've saved loads of money by not paying people.
Oh.
That's the person who's going to get the benefit of this making $1 billion. And you guys are missing the point and blaming Margot Robbie for earning 50 million. That 1 billion doesn't exist without Margot Robbie.
Yeah. I'd
Pay
love
the people who make the fucking thing, not the people who sit there and just go, yes, you can go make me $1 billion. Sick of it.
Yeah. It's wild that they would now still probably stand there and go, yeah, we're not paying your demands.
Not that this podcast makes any money, but like in reality, it would be like us getting someone who, and we call them the CEO, and they don't do anything other than say, yes, you can record this week. And we send them the script, not the script, the talking points that I put together, and they greenlight that, and then they get to take 90% of whatever we make, even though me and you come up with all the talking points, we record it, we edit it, we upload it, we keep an eye on all of the news feeds and that to make sure we don't miss anything important. But because this one person greenlights stuff and answers email if we were to ever get one, they get 90% of the money. It makes no sense. Give the money to the people who make the money.
Yeah, put the money back into the fucking business.
Yes. Yes. Hot take, and I think I've said this before, there is actually no reason why a company needs to be profitable.
Yeah.
Pay everyone a salary. If the company makes profit, give bonuses, give pay rises, and then reinvest the rest of the money into expanding. You don't need to make any money.
Yeah.
The only reason profits exist is for stakeholders who have mummy and daddy's money that got invested in the company back in 1803 and they never have to work a day in their life because of it. It makes no sense.
Yeah. Oh, yes, it's wild.
However, on that note,
wild.
1 share of Cutscene Convos will be $50,000. Thank you.
We should do what Sentinels have done.
Yeah, it's gone so well for them. However, Barbie's money-making revenues are not done yet because they've announced when the digital release is coming. September 5th.
When is that? That's like a month, right?
No, Barbie came out 21st of July. So, month and a half.
Okay. Still pretty
fucking
quick, yeah.
But they also didn't announce it until like 3
True.
days ago, after it had already gone to the fucking moon.
True.
But it does just hurt like the back end of it. I don't know if they're worried about it hitting another milestone that means they have to pay out more money, or if they're like, oh, our projections are saying we're not getting any more viewers now, so we can announce when it's coming out, or what.
Maybe.
So I'm gonna out myself here.
Oh.
Despite being a self-proclaimed comic book fan, and despite claiming Edgar Wright is one of my favorite directors,
Okay.
I have never seen Scott Pilgrim versus the World.
Not even the... Wait, I thought you were going to say,
Not
like,
even
you've
the
never
original.
read...
Nope. I've never seen it. I have meant to sit down and watch this probably 100 times, and then I get distracted. ADHD brain go brr.
Such a good film.
Yeah. And this is all I've ever heard. And I've seen like clips on, and I'm like, oh, that looks fucking sick. I have to watch that soon. And I forget every single time without
Me
fail.
with the boys.
But the anime is coming, and that's
Yes, it
brand
is.
new stuff, which is a brilliant opportunity for me to watch that. And this is the most fucking insane, ridiculous part of this anime. So it's a remake of a thing that people already love and have seen recently. Like, it's not that old. It's like 10 years old.
Something
Not even,
like...
maybe.
I don't remember when it came out.
Actually, it's probably old. Probably older than that. 2010, 13 years old.
Okay.
So they're bringing it back as an anime. It's a remake, but it's an anime TV show.
Yes.
But they've got the same
original
director
cast.
and Edgar Wright, and the original cast doing all the voicing. The only difference is it's an anime. This is the most batshit crazy remake ever. Everyone involved is like, this is really weird, but also really cool.
Yeah. It's because obviously you'll have seen clips of how like they incorporate stuff into
it's proper
the film.
comic book style.
Yeah. So it makes sense to do an anime version. Like, it lets them go even more wild with that stuff and not be kind of limited with trying to make it work into like live action footage. So I mean, it's smart as well. Very smart of them to use the same cast, because no one's gonna get the weird like, oh well, it was better when so and so was the voice of like. I only know that person as that character.
Yeah.
You won't have any of that. It's like they're still the voice. Like, it's still them. It's gonna be weird. It like less weird if you watch this before you watch the original film. You're going into this fresh-minded. I'm going in with like, I know what the film's like, so this is gonna be weird to rewatch it as an anime, but also excited for it.
So I imagine we'll probably cover that when it comes out to
Yeah, I'm down.
Netflix on November 17th. We've got a while.
Yeah, we have.
But we got the first trailer for it.
Yes, look very cool.
I like the animation style. Like I said, I've never read the comic book, so I don't know if it matches.
I don't know, actually.
The comic? Yes, it is very, very similar to how the comic was
there
drawn.
we go then.
So, if you love the comic, if you love the film, this thing's probably going to be phenomenal. You're probably going to love it. Michael Cera is one of my favorite kind of weird niche actors. I feel like I love him in everything he does.
Yeah.
He's just absolutely smashed it out of the park in Barbie as Alan. I mean, I see no reason this isn't going to probably destroy the internet.
I think this is one of the few things in a while, probably since like Stranger Things, where people have been excited for something from Netflix.
Yes. I assume Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, the movie, is also on Netflix or coming back to Netflix when this drops.
That's a good question.
Oh, it's currently on Amazon Prime Video.
Ah.
In like included, which is interesting.
Okay. Interesting.
Yes.
Well, you have a choice. You either go in fresh with no previous watch, or you watch the original and then
I think
watch
I'll go in fresh just because the TV show's going to have more detail.
Yeah.
So then I won't feel like I've missed out on context when watching the film.
Yeah.
And I've got a feeling that if I love both of these as much as I've always assumed I'm going to love it, that I may end up going and buying the entire comic run. I was going to say,
you might be increasing your to-read pile.
It's got so big. Look at it. It's fucking huge, man. But it's good because once I buy a house, I'm probably not going to be able to afford to buy comics for a while, so I'll be able to finally catch up.
If you have time to read
Yeah.
them.
Oh, I have to start making time. I won't be able to afford to turn the PC on anymore. It'll get turned on for recording and nothing else. Just sat there by candlelight reading my comic.
Like the good old days.
I don't know why I put it down in this order. It's probably just because the order I remembered stuff. On the news of studios being scumbags who don't want to give anyone money, TSG, a Hollywood financer. So, as a general rule, I don't know how many people are aware of this. I've only become aware of this in like the last few years. Disney don't actually put the money up for their films.
Well, yeah,
they greenlight the project, and then they essentially go to a financer, a company that will go out and they'll get clients to give the money, or they'll have their own pool of money.
Yeah.
And they're essentially like an investment firm. Mm-hmm. So sometimes they really like a project, they'll invest the company's money to make them more money.
Yeah.
And they'll also, if they need even more money, they'll go out to backers and they're like, here is your potential return on investment, blah, 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 blah. There are always people who want to invest in films because it's like, oh, I can make money and say I'm involved in something artistic.
Yep.
It might be the only thing rich people are actually useful for. Anyway, TSG has filed a lawsuit against Disney because they have been using every accounting trick in Hollywood, that's a direct quote, to hide hundreds of millions of dollars of profit from TSG. So, the way it basically works is I am Disney, Hori is TSG. I go, give me 100 million to make this film. Hori goes, cool. For every dollar of profit you make, so he gets back his 100 million, bare minimum. Every dollar of profit you make, I get 20 cents, as a for instance. I don't know the actual numbers. I'm then using creative accounting tricks to make it look like I've made 500 million instead of 1 billion, so that I get to pay Hori half as much.
Yeah.
But Disney are doing this for all of their fucking films.
Now, you know how the easy way to think about this, we all hate how rich people do every trick in the book to pay the minimum amount of tax possible by writing stuff off, lowering down their yearly income profit so they pay less tax. Essentially the same thing. Disney is minimizing on book how much profit they've made, so there's the percentage they have to pay to TSG obviously then is a smaller amount.
You know what the crazy thing is?
Go on.
The most insane batshit crazy thing is, if Disney were using this stolen money from the other rich fuckers to pay their actors and writers, I'd be like, yeah, get fucked. I would fully be like, yeah, screw it. That all of that money is just going to people who worked on the film. I don't care.
Yeah.
But it's not even doing that. It's just Disney holding even more profit. It is both ends of the people Disney can screw out of money. They are screwing out of money. You don't get to do both. You can either be Robin Hood, you can take from TSG and their investors, who are other rich arseholes.
Yeah.
And you can make sure the actors, the writers, the people who work on all the props and everything get paid very well.
Yeah.
And I'd have been like, yeah, fuck it. Let Disney be Disney. That's my mega corporation. Words I will never actually say, but you get the idea. Or they can be real scum.
Yeah.
And they can do what they're doing to the actors and writers currently. But make sure you're paying back your fucking money you owe to the other rich people. At least be the rich scum who are just going to fuck off the poor and be rich for all your rich friends.
Well, it's like, at least if you're paying TSG back properly, you can be like, guys, it's not our fault. TSG's taking all our money. And like trying to like shove off the blame. No, but you're going, nah, fuck you. And actually, no, sorry, we can't pay you back, TSG. We've got to keep all the money. And then you just got Bob Iger swimming in a room of cash.
Yeah.
Do you know the problem?
I've never wanted more a mega corporation to fold.
This lawsuit, I don't think is going to stick very well. Because you're going to have an issue like you have with tax, where it's not tax evasion. It's what I forget which way around it is. It's tax evasion's bad. Tax avoidance is just the way
Tax
the world.
evasion is where you just don't pay your tax. Tax avoidance is where you use creative accounting to pay the least amount of tax possible, a
Which,
la Jimmy Carr.
yeah, which is where people will make a mistake and then they accidentally step into tax evasion and then they get hit. I think them hitting them with a lawsuit, saying they've been using every accounting trick possible, they're hoping that there's like one misstep.
I'm willing to bet they won't have made this lawsuit unless throughout Disney's process they've made one fuck up that allows them to go, all of these films, you owe us the rest of our money.
I think it's either they've got wind of something, so they know there's been a fuck up, and they're like, fine, we're going after it. Or someone in TSG, like some like intern accountant's come along and he's gone, so you know how for the past 5 years you've given Disney this much money, looking at how much their films have made and how much they've reinvested into things, and then someone sat there and worked out all the numbers and gone, hang on, should we not have been paid more by Disney? And then some executive at TSG's gone, they're stealing our money. Lawsuit. And then hopefully something sticks.
Let's be clear. I feel like in this industry there's like an expected level of accounting bullshittery. Because like it's very well known that Disney and Universal and Warner Bros. They spin up these like fake companies essentially that take out loans and then go bust because of the loans. But then Disney get the profit and like the benefit of the loans without ever having to properly pay it back. This is a thing that actually fucking happens. So they're just using all of these tricks to like create and knock down company after company after company after company to hide this money. But actually they've still got it. And TSG's called bullshit and they've gone, we let you away with 80% of what you're doing, but now you're really taking the piss.
Well, it's one of those things where it's like there was a boom in cinema, and they were probably like, Disney was making so much money off MCU. TSG was probably like, we're rolling it. Things have gone a little bit down, and like Disney's obviously talked about potentially selling off things, different like Disney's like making out they're not in a bad spot. So TSG's gone, oh, hang on a second, all those things we let slide, we want all our money before you disappear with like all our money. Like actually pay us properly now. We let this shit slide it because we were making loads, but I actually think TSG is worried Disney's gonna disappear. So then they don't, like, they're trying to make sure they're paid properly before that happens.
Yeah, and it's not like they were just like giving the money for like tiny little projects. One of the films they financed was Avatar: Way of the Water.
It's all in a pool in that James Cameron.
Yeah. Just I'm convinced James Cameron doesn't actually spend money on a film. He just uses the money and throws it in a pit of fire. That's the kind of director
All that money went on the cost of importing that seawater into
a I think what I'll do is, if I've managed to convince someone to make me a director, I'll work out how much it's going to cost, say 50 million. I'll get a studio to give me 150 million, and I'll just burn 100 million of it, just as a massive fuck you.
Just do what I bet James Cameron spent all of that budget on graphics cards. That's why there was a shortage. He had to fund the render farms for his water renders.
Yeah. And more Disney being shit. We let Disney get away with a lot in the past. And like there was a lot of stuff where it's like there's no actual drama happening, so we just kind of forget about it, like you always do in mega corporations. When they're not actively in the news for being bastards, you forget that they are such bastards.
Yeah.
Disney are having a real shit run at the minute.
They are.
And it's nice because it makes me remember that I do hate all mega corporations. No matter how many cute mouths they have, they are still
also
scum.
Shows to our viewers that we don't just hate on DC and Warner Brothers.
Oh, yeah,
do also hate on Disney and Marvel.
every single mega corporation can burn in a hole. Anyway, Disney is shutting down the Lucasfilm Studio in Singapore that made the Clone Wars and other animated projects like Bad Batch, Rebels, etc. They weren't the sole studio that did it, but they were the core studio that did a lot of the work. Any other work was kind of outsourced.
And also to note, like, the Singapore studio is Lucasfilm Animated Studio. Like, it's all they do is animation.
Is this a bad sign for animated Star Wars projects?
So we slightly, before we start recording, we were just looking up about this and touched on it. I was thinking maybe they're just shifting resources. I looked up, like, a lot of their other studios, like, this was the only one on animation. They have the ILM Industrial Light and Magic ones, which I guess probably do generally all types of VFX. In a hopeful world, in a beautiful world where the writers are paid properly and actors are paid properly, and we have the best MCU TV series.
Yeah, and VFX workers are treated like people.
Yeah. In this wonderful world that we clearly don't live in, I'd like to think, because of Visions, they've realized, wow, there's a lot of amazing studios out there that can do great animated Star Wars projects. I'm realizing, oh, we can trust other studios with Star Wars projects. We don't have to keep it in-house. And they're like, oh, we'll just start outsourcing. Like, we'll have one of these studios we love working with can do a whole series. But then you brought me back to reality.
Yeah, I brought you crashing back down to earth with the more terrifying and unfortunately realistic expectation that Disney are showing a lot of interest in AI.
Yes, they are.
And I am deeply concerned that with the amount of Star Wars animated content that is a relatively consistent style, bar things like lightsaber thickness, realistically, most people who don't watch a fuck ton of animated stuff are going to look at Clone Wars and Rebels and go, yeah, they look basically the same style-wise. They could build an AI, train it on that style, and just use it to pump out garbage.
Do you know what's bad? Now, the more we've been talking about this, you watch Corridor Digital stuff on occasion. A while back, when AI stuff was still very fresh, they did a anime rock paper scissors video, and that was all done with an AI system that essentially takes like live action footage and creates like an anime style. Got a mixed opinions on it. It was very like early days of AI. They did a second one.
Realized how bad it was for artists.
They've done a second one the other week. Obviously a lot cleaner looking. It's already out there, and very possible that they could, with some mocap, that could be anyone in an office, very easily probably AI animate a Star Wars thing. There's so much that they can feed into the system. Like, they have so much footage they can feed into it for it to reference. Like, it could probably very easily produce something. And I think you're right. It's with how much interest Disney's shown, with the fact that they were posting job things for AI people, I do think it's a worry that maybe they would lean heavily on AI. I think what we might see is the VFX studios of ILM will do like the basic groundwork, and they'll use AI to cut a lot of time down. Which,
I mean, people need to push back. I know it's scary, and I know it's never easy to say no to your boss, but the people who are at the lowest level are tasked with this need to say to their guy, no, I'm not doing that. And he needs to go, you're fucking right. He needs to say, and yeah, it'll probably have to go up 18 levels. And at one point, you're going to get the first person who disagrees. But guess what? Form a fucking union and go, no.
I think,
let the actual artists, the people whose jobs it is, decide what AI is acceptable versus dangerous.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, right? There's ethical use of AI, and then there's what a lot of Disney's talked. We hear Disney talking about of like replacing actors with just AI versions of them and stuff like
Yeah.
that. Ethical use of AI is like what we saw with Spider-Verse. Like, rather than an artist sitting there for months on end drawing the same line on a character's face just for that comic book line effect, like, sure, get an AI to be able to replicate that effect and like essentially cut out like you going frame by frame. That's smart use of AI. An artist still has to go in there and do the groundwork and set like have it set up, and it's just like filling in the gap between like major points. That's a smart use of AI. If Lucasfilms goes that way, and in maybe the middle ground that we see is studios, plenty of studios still work on this stuff, but like they start using AI to help just like cut out some of that tedious work because it is a very consistent style. They can possibly find some stuff, like find ways to do that. I just don't want another worry. I'm just thinking it's like what if they just cut out having voice actors? They have enough like like voice lines from these different voice actors for the main characters that they could just like replicate stuff. It's a like with the way Disney's talked about AI, it's worrying. I still am holding out hope that it's just like they're gonna outsource more. Hopefully.
I hope so. I'm not outsourcing in the way of just trying to not pay their own workers, but imagine if you went, right, we want 2 seasons of a show.
Mm-hmm.
This is the show. We'll do the voice acting and the script writing. We love this episode you did for Visions, or this concept you gave us for Visions. Can you do it in that style?
Well, yeah, that's like I would love for this to be a world we're going into now, which I who knows, but it would be a great world if it's like they're going, I don't know, we're doing this story. We loved what you did in Visions. They're an indie studio. To give like these indie studios like a bigger series to work on is like huge for them. And I think Star Wars is realizing, okay, there's studios that can do great work. The fans are loving the style of. It makes sense to like one, they can outsource it so it's less pressure on themselves, and two, also would allow them to get more stuff made if they're spreading out like different things across different studios. And it gives these studios amazing opportunities because like who the fuck doesn't want to work on a Star Wars project? Like,
Yeah, exactly. It's exactly that. But that also relies on us living in a world where Disney aren't scum.
yeah.
Gal
Wonder Woman.
Gadot.
Yeah.
This was an interesting one. It was still kind of advancing last week, and we could have spoken about it. But I was like, this is a very fluid situation. I don't even know where to start with it. And it's not really got any clearer, but I've spent a bit more time looking at it to try and understand what the fuck's going on.
Mm-hmm.
So Gal Gadot
A few weeks back.
Yeah, that she's been told by James Gunn and Peter Safran, sorry, that they have plans for her and that they're working on a Wonder Woman 3 featuring her as Wonder Woman, and that she is in their plans for the DCU.
So, well, there's two parts to this, right? Because it was like, I'd say that maybe a month ago, there was something where there's like, Wonder Woman 3 is in the work. Gal, like she said, Wonder Woman 3 is in the works and she's working on it with James Gunn. Then it was like, she was claiming, well, I think actually the order of events was like, it came out that there is no plan for Wonder Woman. Like, James Gunn came out and was like, we have no plan for Wonder Woman. Because obviously, after Gal Gadot announced that, everyone was up in arms of like, wow, so you got rid of Ben Affleck and Henry Cavill, but Gal Gadot's the same age. Like, why is she good enough to stay? I mean, there's numerous reasons for that anyway, but fans were a bit up in arms. So James Gunn does as usual, tries to clear the water a bit. Said that like, no, we're not working on Wonder Woman 3. So then she hits back and she's like, oh, I was told by James Gunn that they are working on Wonder Woman 3, and they loved her as Wonder Woman and want to work on something and involve her in DCU. But now I get the sense that James Gunn's like, no, we never said that.
Yeah, it's kind of been radio silence from him since then. There's been no real discussion. Let's be completely clear. She was not good as Wonder Woman. Gal Gadot is not a good actress.
Yeah, she's pretty. Basic.
Like, there's not a lot there. And
I do think the first Wonder Woman film was good.
yeah.
In the grand scheme of DCU.
But
it's like,
wasn't.
Also, it's like, do you know what I feel like? I said this in a message to you. I feel like this was when everything was changing over, and James Gunn obviously met with everybody during that period of time to kind of see what projects were being worked on, what like projects were wanted to be made and what were not, while he was figuring out what he was going to be doing. I feel like there was a meeting. He was like, "Yeah, we liked you as Wonder Woman. We thought you did a good job." Obviously, she wanted to be making a Wonder Woman 3. There was kind of that rumor back then that there was going to be a Wonder Woman 3. It wouldn't surprise me if at first he was thinking, yeah, well, maybe we can still make one, and it'll be like an Elseworlds. But then it's like, as he's realized, and this is like probably way back early days when he didn't really know what was going on, probably didn't promise her that, yes, we're going to make it. He probably was like, well, that might fit in. Sort of like attitude of like, maybe there's a place for that to still happen. And then it's like he's figured out, nah, I'm doing DCU, like we're starting from scratch. This is the Superman I want to do and all this. He's like, so he's never gone back to it. And she's just presumed, oh yeah, it's still happening, but not talk to him and then put it out there to the fans. Almost as if trying to use the fans to pressure him into confirming it is what it feels like. It's almost being like, oh, if he's not going to confirm it, I'll put it out there. So then he's going to have to do it because the fans are going to be so loud about wanting it. And instead it's like, nah, I never said that. See you later.
And no one's even like desperate for it.
Everyone's just like,
have been, I don't believe her, or why would they keep her and not Henry Cavill?
Yeah, and then it's like now we're realizing, oh, it's not actually happening. She was just delusional.
Yeah.
It's very much a like, she's like, James Gunn said some very loose thing early on when he probably first came into this position, and she's just clung on to that as like, yes, this is happening. And it's...
Yeah, exactly.
It's not. It would be so confusing. Like, it makes no sense for that to like even happen.
Bearing in mind, chapter 1 is gods and creatures.
She'd know by now if it was happening.
Like, Wonder Woman is peak for gods and creatures. She would have been announced.
Yeah.
I don't get. I don't get it.
Also, wait, we did get something. We got there's going to be the TV series based on the Amazonians, isn't there?
Yeah.
So it's like, that's where he's going to obviously go with how he's going to introduce Wonder Woman and stuff, I imagine.
You'd expect so.
So it's like, it just screams, this was like a conversation ages ago. She's not heard anything more, so she's like, fuck it, I'm just going to put it out there.
Do you know what it kind of seems like? As someone who is not even remotely in this industry, but as someone who could hazard a guess at what might have happened, she's asked her agent what's going on, and he didn't have an answer. And instead of going, I don't know, let me see, he's gone, yeah, no, James and Peter, they love you. They'll definitely get you back. Don't worry about it.
No, I think you're right. This screams like her agent or something being like, oh yeah, they said after like you chatted with them that they loved you, so like I'm sure this is still in the works and everything. And she's gone, oh great, talk about it on some interview.
Yeah.
So she's just got egg on her
I could
face.
very, very easily seeing that be the case.
Yeah, and yeah, it's just I'm glad that it seems to be not true, because it would have just been, we've already talked about our worries about this being a messy transition period, and that would have just made it way worse. Way worse.
It's an absolute mess.
Do you know what's funny? Maybe there was a sliver of it happening, but with like Shazam and Flash and how people have responded to her being like shoved into every single film that was coming out, fans were not happy about the fact that Wonder Woman just kept showing up.
Yeah.
Like James Gunn might have gone, yeah, no.
She just appears out of nowhere. You hear that fucking egregious... Yeah. I'm just like, no. If she turns up in Blue Beetle, I might actually hate it.
Yeah, that would ruin the film.
So we'll see. But I want her gone. Get her out. Go be part of the family.
Give us a fresh
in the
start.
Fast and Furious world. Content championship? Question mark?
Yes.
It's a big boy. It's another dirty week. I feel like it's not a difficult answer, but it's not one we're gonna like.
This is true.
And this is the problem. We're getting less like genuinely mind-meltingly difficult ones, and more. It's an easy one, but I don't like that it's easy.
Yeah.
We have of course got Iron Man 1, starring Robert Downey Jr., came out in 2008 for Horry's 56th birthday, versus Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Rings, the first book Horizontal read as a first edition.
I read it at 1 year old.
Yeah.
I don't actually know when the first edition came out.
The Hobbit came out like 39, didn't it?
Yes. Anyway.
It's old. So, as always, 6 categories.
Mm-hmm.
Personal relevance, how well it has aged, rewatchability, story, acting, and cinematography.
Yes.
Would you like to get started? Maybe.
I think it's almost safe to say. I'm trying to rack my memory, but from memory, I would actually say that I think Lord of the Rings was the first franchise of films that I ever watched, like very young. Like I can remember watching Lord of the Rings sooner than before I watched Star Wars, I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
So like Lord of the Rings I have like loved for a long time, from a very young age.
It was your nerd birth.
It was my nerd canon event. It got me into the world of nerddom. And I remember because it's like they were long films. And there was like I think it was my uncle who got me to watch them. Or we put them on when I was at my uncle's.
And you only watched the extended editions.
Well, yeah, it's like, this is like a long film, and this is just the first one. There's 3 of them, and it's like, and then since I've been alive, like they brought out the extended editions that have even more footage. But Lord of the Rings, it's just like it's such a staple franchise, and really just like, I mean, we'll get into like how well it's aged, but timeless. But then Iron Man 1 was like, I remember the birth of the MCU. Without that film, there would be no MCU. Like we know this as fact, that like, and that film was not expected to be this huge success and lead to what it has. Like it was just we want to make this film, threw it out there. As a kid, I'm like, holy shit, guy in a robotic suit. This is cool as fuck. And then, like, I mean,
you could said kid when he was 19 in 2008.
Bro, I was like 14. You could also, it's hard to say, but either of these could technically be the reason this podcast, I mean, more so Iron Man, I would say, because the MCU was like a solid reason this podcast happened.
If not for the MCU, this probably wouldn't be going. Yeah. Because that's when we first started having these conversations, because it was
all the MCU stuff happening.
Everything going on in the MCU, friends always asking what was going on.
Yeah.
And it was just like what the MCU is the reason this podcast exists, but it's not the reason we fell in love with the genres.
Yeah, I think that's a fair way to put it. Like Iron Man is the reason I am here doing this podcast.
Yeah.
Lord of the Rings is the reason I became a nerd.
Yeah, if not for me, the Raimi films and the X-Men films in the noughties, I wouldn't have given a fuck about the MCU early enough to know enough to have even considered this. There's a difference between the reason it's able to exist and
Yeah.
the reason
Yeah.
we gave a fuck.
I would say Lord of the Rings is the only reason I give a fuck about D&D. And I love D&D. But like that entrance into fantasy, I think that's why, to me, Lord of the Rings is my like takes it on personal relevance.
Interesting. Claims to love D&D but hasn't played Baldur's Gate with me. Interesting.
I haven't had time to buy it. I have literally. I thought about this the other day, and I was like, even if I bought it right now, I don't have time to play, and that would frustrate me more. Owning a game and not being able to play it.
Do you know what the crazy thing is? Having now played a fair bit of it, my brain is trying to put a character together for if we do a co-op playthrough. I'm like, I want to do stuff slightly differently. So I'm like, oh, what could I do? I want to have a bit more fun with it. Anyway,
we'll do it.
Back on topic. Yeah.
But yeah, for you, what's it was for you?
Obviously, for me, I'm more superhero focused, which is why we have such a good balance here.
Yes.
Iron Man was the start of the MCU. It changed comic book media in a way I don't think anyone fully understands yet. And it was the beginning and inception of the largest film franchise in the history. I double checked it, don't worry.
Yeah, that's fine.
And also, although we know RDJ as a superstar now, he was the recently out of prison drug addict who was the big risk. That was the talking point when this film was coming out. It's like, Marvel and Disney taking a huge risk with Robert Downey Jr. being the face of their new film.
Yeah.
Like, that was a huge talking point. And now he's just Robert Downey Jr., the man who's probably about to win an Oscar for his role in Oppenheimer.
Yeah.
Whereas with Lord of the Rings, it's the first film in what is largely regarded one of the greatest trilogies of all time. And it created an entire new generation of fantasy fans. I mean, you literally just said it.
Yeah.
If not for Lord of the Rings, you probably wouldn't give a fuck about D&D. And when D&D is like the second biggest part of the fantasy genre and fandom.
Yeah.
Like, it shows how big a reach Lord of the Rings had.
It really did.
And I think we can see that with like moving into how well they've aged. For Lord of the Rings, I literally put perfectly. Like an expensive fine wine, everyone wishes they could experience it for the first time again. And it is that.
Yeah.
Lord of the Rings is definitely one of them trilogies. If someone said, take this pill and you will get to experience the extended editions for the first time, everyone is scoffing that motherfucker down.
Yeah. I mean, like you say, it's aged perfectly. And I think also in like how well it's aged, like it's aged so well across all generations. Like my parents know and think highly of Lord of the Rings. Like, yeah, it's this amazing trilogy of films. My siblings and cousins this age, like we all love Lord of the Rings. Like our age range probably were the first that like grew up from a young age, got tattoos and really fell in love with it. And across, I mean, there's a whole generation that are now in love with Aragorn.
Yeah.
And create thirst trap TikToks of him.
Yeah.
So I mean, in that sense, that didn't exist for a while ago, like back when it came out, and it does now. So it's aged very well for a lot of people.
100%.
I also think Iron Man's aged well.
Well, that's what I was going to say. It's one of the most beloved comic book movies ever. And recently, people are complaining they missed that exact time of comic book movies.
Yeah. It's
and it was just after the mid 2000s where stuff was a little bit weird and the story was a bit too cut and paste. And they were like, well, we'll stick it close enough to that it feels right, but we'll change it enough to give it its own life. But I do think for the most part it lives and dies on RDJ's performance.
Yes, and I think if it'd been made without, like, I don't think it would have happened without him. And because of that, it's like there's a lot of weight on, like, it had to happen exactly how it did. And yes, it's aged well. and everyone like looks back on it and wishes the MCU was kind of back to that era of the MCU and different things, but it's not Lord of the Rings. It's
Rewatchability.
that's tough because one you
So
can quite easily sit down and watch.
Iron Man, I said it has very high rewatchability since it's at the start of the MCU, so no other context is needed.
Yeah.
You can watch Iron Man 1, you don't have to watch another film afterwards.
Yeah.
And you can just go, that was a fun 2 hours.
Yeah. I would say like similar. I'm on one, start of it. You don't need to know any other context. You can just enjoy Iron Man. It's a great film.
Just don't watch the cutscene at the end and you'll be fine. You won't be sat there going, oh, what happens next?
It's also like it's not like some big undertaking. Whereas Lord of the Rings, it's like if someone said, "Do you want to watch Lord of the Rings?" I'd be like, "Oh, we got time to watch Lord of the Rings." Yeah. Like it's an like I'm always down to watch it, but like you got to make time to watch Lord of the Rings.
Well, here's the thing: I refuse to watch anything other than the extended editions.
Yeah,
and that makes it a 3.5-hour film.
Which,
and after you watch that, you're going to be desperate to watch the second one.
Yeah,
and then the third one.
Yeah.
So you sat there and you're like, oh well, it's only a 3-hour film, and then I go, no, we're watching the extended cut. That's another half an hour. And then before you know it, that's 3.5 hours out of a day where you're probably only awake for 16 anyway.
Yeah.
You're probably gonna lose half an hour pausing it to go for a piss or getting a snack. Then you're at 4 hours, and then someone is gonna go, do you want to put the next one on? And you go, yeah. And then the extended cut of that one's like 3.5, 4 hours as well. And then before you know it, it's 6 a.m. the next day, and you're like, that was so worth it, but my God, I just wanted to watch one film.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. It's like, or like it becomes, oh, well, we'll have to watch that tomorrow. So now let's shift around tomorrow so we can watch the second film.
Yeah, exactly. You've got to plan a Lord of the Rings viewing and just go, right, we're getting up at 10 o'clock Saturday morning. We will sort breakfast. We'll watch the first one. We'll sort lunch. We'll eat our lunch while watching the second one. Then we'll cook dinner and have dinner while we're watching the third one. And then we'll go to bed. And it's got to be timed out to perfection.
Do you know what would be perfect for a Lord of the Rings marathon?
Go on.
If elven bread was real. Just eat elven bread before it starts. You're sustained for the whole running. But I do think we're both very much leaning here to, I feel, Iron Man.
It's only just more rewatchable because of the lack
slightly more convenient.
Yes, exactly. And when it comes to me rewatching stuff, because I have such good memory for stuff I've watched, I always choose convenience.
Yeah.
Which is why I end up watching 20-minute sitcoms over and over again, because every 20-minute interval, I get the opportunity to put it down and go, enough's enough.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Now I know one of the first things I'm going to have to do when I move into my new house is the first Lord of the Rings.
Don't worry, I'm now sat here going, when can I watch Lord of the Rings?
when do I have 12 hours that I don't need to do anything?
If I wasn't having to watch Invincibles this week, I'd probably do it this week. But
unlucky, buddy. You made the rules, I just enforced them. Now on to the ones where I think Iron Man's in a lot more trouble.
Yeah.
Story.
I mean, Iron Man's an origin story. It's a good one. Does a great job of introducing you to Iron Man. I think it's a solid, good all-round superhero origin story, but that is simply what it is. Yeah. Lord of the Rings is the first in a incredible trilogy that, let's be honest, that story in the first film captivates you for wanting, like we said, you've got to sit down and watch the rest of them. Like, the story is so good. There's a reason it's such a well-regarded series of books, and it was brought to life so well on film.
I'm very much with you. You basically use the same words as me for Iron Man. Simple, but it hits all the major notes at a solid pace. It is the gold standard for a superhero origin film.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, with the amount of superhero films we've had, everyone's bored of origin films now, which I think hurts the story slightly retroactively, but not enough for it to matter because it is still the gold standard.
Yeah.
Whereas Lord of the Rings, it's a masterpiece. It's literally one of the greatest stories ever told.
Mm-hmm.
Like, in when the written word is as old as it is, and we've got books now that are so popular from 200-ish years ago, this is one of the greatest stories ever told. To the point where even people who will sit there unironically and say that superhero stuff and Star Wars is for nerds and losers will not diss Lord of the Rings. They're like, no, it's really well written. Yeah, it's not my cup of tea, but it is really well written. No one faults that. And I don't think the film does either. It takes that story and tells it faithfully.
Yeah. Agreed.
Acting.
I mean,
this is where Iron Man gets the closest in these.
Yes, because RDJ is Iron Man. Like,
100%.
They saw him, like, when they were making that film, they knew immediately, as soon as he was on set, like, he was Iron Man. He was Tony Stark. That film lived and died by that. Mm-hmm. They had some great actors. They
had Jeff Bridges as Obadiah Stane.
Yeah, they had a stacked cast for a film, for a franchise that was not established. This was just a film they wanted to make. They hoped it made a profit. They weren't too worried about anything past that. They just wanted to make a good film and have fun. And they got a stacked cast. They did. But Lord of the Rings also has quite the stacked cast.
Yeah, so this is exactly what I said. Although RDJ as Iron Man Tony Stark is seen as one of the greatest castings of all time, and Jeff Bridges as Obadiah Stane was a phenomenal decision. And like for that film, Samuel L. Jackson got the role of Nick Fury. Yes, he wasn't in a lot of the film, but this is why we start to get some of these brilliant, long-lasting casting decisions. Mm-hmm. But the Lord of the Rings cast is a cast full of superstars. Some of them were superstars before Lord of the Rings, and some of them became superstars because of Lord of the Rings. Mm-hmm. Orlando Bloom, who dominated the cinema from Lord of the Rings through to like 2012, was all because Lord of the Rings. That was like one of his first big acting roles. Elijah Wood was pretty famous, but was young.
Yeah.
But then you've got people like Ian McKellen, one of the all-time greats.
Who, like we said, RDJ is Iron Man. Ian McKellen is Gandalf.
Yeah.
Like,
one that I even forgot because of just like the quality of makeup and how old the films are, and the faces don't always line up how I remember them now. Kate Blanchett.
Yeah.
It's just stacked.
Oh yeah, like
top to bottom.
Don't forget we had Andy Serkis was Gollum.
Because Andy Serkis does not miss.
Sean Bean, not as maybe as highly regarded as Ian McKellen, but at the time, Sean Bean was a very well regarded actor.
Christopher motherfucking Lee.
Yeah. Like
it's just top to bottom a phenomenal cast.
Yeah,
and the acting lives up to everyone's abilities.
Yeah. It's just like Iron Man was stacked, but like you're going against.
But as good as Iron Man was, they also didn't need to do as much.
No.
Yeah, like there was less high quality acting required.
Yeah, the story and the acting for Iron Man is what you would expect from a Marvel film. Lord of the Rings was you are acting like what the book, like those books are very well written, which means you have to do some goddamn good acting.
And also, it was at the beginning of this kind of new wave of using CGI and visual effects so much, which meant they hadn't had a lot of experience working in this kind of situation before. So they had to learn how to do it on the spot. Whereas now, actors have been acting in this way for 20 years, since Lord of the Rings. So actors know how to do it now. They were the first. They were breaking ground.
Well, that's also the thing. It's like Lord of the Rings was, and I guess this is now kind of feeding into cinematography a bit.
Yeah.
But Lord of the Rings was at like that peak of what we love, where it's still very heavy practical, with then CGI added in there, like
Put it this way:
enhanced
you
backdrops.
can still go visit the Shire.
Yes, the Shire.
they built proper fucking sets, and then they enhanced it with computers.
Well, that's the funny thing. The first time around, it was a temporary thing, and they're like, it's fine. Then they're like, shit, this film franchise is like really blowing up. We need a bit more of a permanent set. To the point where that is a running business now to go visit the Shire. You can stay there. You can eat in the big town hall building. Like, it's a whole experience.
They'd think you were a wizard giant if you turn up.
Yeah, I would literally be like Gandalf walking into those homes, hitting my head on stuff.
You'd have to.
But that's the thing. Like, the cinematography of Lord of the Rings, it was like I've watched just as much of the behind the scenes stuff as I have the films, and it's like they put in the work to make those films, like climbing up mountains, taking helicopter. I can't remember which.
Viggo Mortensen broke his toe.
I can't remember which actor it was, but he had a fear of helicopters, so he refused to fly to the top of the mountain for a scene. It could have been Sean Bean.
Sean Bean.
But like he then hiked up a mountain in his like whole kit, and like that was the thing. Everything was practical.
Yeah, it was Sean Bean.
But like
he spent
CGI
2 hours scaling a mountain
each
day so that he could film the scenes because he refused to get in the helicopters.
Which is why, like,
fucking hilarious. Could you imagine that in Hollywood today?
It wouldn't happen. But that's the thing. Like, a lot of what happened on Lord of the Rings wouldn't happen today because they just do it on blue screen or green screen. Like, you can't, like, the way that film was made, like, brought so much, like, industry into New Zealand that was great for their economy. It showed so much love. Well, yeah, and showed so much love. Like, going to those landscape spots and doing, like, there's so much work was put into that film, and it's shot amazingly.
I'm sure basically any day of the year you can go to one of these parts of New Zealand and you will see people in full cosplay reenacting their favourite Lord of the Rings scenes.
Probably.
I promise you.
You can probably go and be like, this is 90% exactly how you see it on the 100%. Film. With just like a bit of extra mountain. Most of the time it's just them adding in Mount Doom.
Yeah. Peter Jackson's a genius.
Yeah, he is.
It's that simple. And my man really made them films, made his studio, and dipped. Like, he really was just like, yeah, I'm just going to go be a billionaire. Cheers.
Iron Man, I mean, it was on a small budget, and they made that happen. And I mean, it's one of the only, I think it's the only film where RDJ was in a full suit.
I don't think it was a full suit a lot of the time. I think there was a couple of shots that were the full suit, but then a lot of the time it was like half of the suit, and they used the shots with the full suit to CG in the rest of it. But yeah, that was as close as he ever got to consistently being in the full suit.
After that, it was shoulder pads, and that was about it.
It was shoulder pads, and then it got down eventually to just being the dots on the fucking face.
So, I mean, like, it was very well made and well shot, and it set the standard for what the MCU became, which was like good, solid superhero films, but it's just not on the same level of Lord of the Rings.
Like I said, for cinematography, it's good. Nothing overly special. The CGI was stellar for the time and still holds up, especially on the budget they were on.
Yeah.
But it was not shot to be a visual masterpiece and was never expected to launch the MCU as it ended up being. Yeah, they wanted it to be a franchise of films. They weren't thinking 50 projects in 15 years, hundreds of millions, billions of dollars in revenue. Like, they weren't expecting that.
No. Whereas Lord of the Rings was like, we have to turn this masterpiece of a book and all the people that have read it and what they've imagined, we've got to somehow bring that to life. And I think they succeeded.
Exactly that.
So, although it feels dirty to do Iron
Because
Man
of our
like this,
love for Iron Man.
and the respect we hold to that film, but unfortunately it was put against Lord of the Rings, and
Blame Horry.
I nearly made a pun then, and I stopped myself because it would have been bad.
Okay, well, I'm glad you did.
But Lord of the Rings goes ahead.
Yeah, that is it from us next week. Would we like a scores on the doors for the round 2 matchups that we've got so far?
Go on. I'm down.
Because these are going to be TV shows versus films in the next round.
Ooh, that's going to make things more interesting.
So we've got Clone Wars versus X-Men Origins Wolverine.
Oh, easy.
Star Wars Rebels versus Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban.
Ooh, bit more difficult.
Andor versus James Gunn's Suicide Squad.
Well, okay.
Breaking Bad versus Return of the Jedi.
Oh, easy.
Animated Spider-Man versus Rogue One.
Oh, easy.
And Netflix's Daredevil versus Lord of the Rings Fellowship of the Rings.
That might be the hardest one.
Yeah, and it's going to feel dirty. We've still got 4 more weeks of round 1. So you've got some time to mentally prepare for that. Yeah. We built a thick boy bracket as always.
We did.
We'll probably be finishing this bracket around the time I move in to a mini flat.
That's wild to think about.
Like, quite possibly that might be the kind of timeline we're looking at here. But that is it from us this week, episode 79. Next week we'll be here with Ahsoka episode 1 and 2, Blue Beetle review.
Yes, busy week.
Busy week. So much content. We will see you all then.
Yes, we will see you next week.
Like and subscribe.